Hey everyone, it's Zach with Palantir Research. Palantir had a volatile week, appearing to create some sort of baseline around $14, and then trying to break out towards 16 when Nvidia's earnings came out, but ultimately coming back down to 14 and testing that area once again for investors. So it's always interesting to see this short-term volatility, but as long-term investors, this is the kind of volatility you'd expect with a company like Palantir. So let's actually just talk about the weekly news for Palantir and the major factors. So what was that? Nvidia's earnings first, which I covered in a video, basically told me that the AI market and the need for compute continues to be bullish. Now, if you look at the stock and the short-term reaction, of course, you wouldn't think that, but just read through Nvidia's earnings report and you'd be quite impressed actually with the numbers and growth there. Now, what I think is more important is Jerome Powell continues to be hawkish. Now, the market has some expectations of rates staying the same or even starting to go down sometime in 2024. We are in August 2023, and Jerome Powell continues to say inflation's too high and expects to increase rates. So I'm not going to speculate what will actually happen with rates. Honestly, things can change in an instant, but as Palantir investors, rates really do dictate on a large scale how stock markets are going to react because of valuation purposes and risk-free returns that are competing with any investment, not just Palantir, but also for the actual businesses or potential customers of Palantir. If money is expensive to borrow or cash can get a better return that's at least easier to sit in treasuries, at least it's risk-free, then money flowing to potential investments, especially for more early adoption technology like AI, in general, is not just Palantir's products, of course, then it stifles the growth in that market, at least in the short term or for a little longer. So companies spend less or they'll delay spending while they can, which Palantir can try to offset for now by doing these trial periods and adopting them. But still, this can hurt revenue growth over time. We'll have to see, of course, how this all turns out. Now, what else happened for Palantir this week? Well, the other news story I covered was Palantir being a participant in Dallo, which for the Denmark market is basically a way to showcase defense companies. So I still remain very optimistic for Palantir to continue penetrating the international government market, in Europe at least, for those related to NATO. We may not see it in the short term, but over the next decade, I would not be surprised to see Palantir as the main beneficiary to rising geopolitical tensions against Russia and China. Then we also had Shyam Sankar and X welcome Calypso AI to the FedStart family. So I know there have been coverage there that could be potential competitors or overlap with Palantir and what they do, which is also covered in that video. I'm not saying to ignore the small competition at least, but they are still establishing themselves as a guardrail play for artificial intelligence. And of course, Palantir's AIP does talk about guardrails as well. And either way, they are going through Palantir, which kind of gives them a piece of the action anyways on if Calypso is very successful on the government front here because they're going through the FedStart program. So it'll be interesting to see how that all turns out. I know it's still really early for that company. And last but not least, my last video right before was on the NHS and how the NHS England Trust is going to be doing a communication plan around their Federated Data Platform, or FDP, and of course that contract's for £480 million and possibly expected to be awarded later in September. So for a long time, silence or snippets of information has been the status quo from the NHS, while ignoring all the foxglove and open democracy kind of FUD about Palantir and being a spy company trying to destroy the NHS, which in my opinion doesn't make sense because they want the NHS to thrive, because how are you going to get paid? But I digress. More to look out to see if this actually changes public opinion of real people, but I think it's a good sign in a fair procurement process at least. You shouldn't be trying to sway public opinion so openly, of course, early in the process to have solutions speak for themselves. So if they're willing to talk about it now, I think it's actually a good sign for Palantir possibly getting the deal because they're willing to talk about it now. But what are your thoughts, though, on Palantir throughout this last week? I know the price was moving out a lot. Just let me know below. And thanks again to everyone and my channel members, and I'll see you in the next video.